This podcast represents the individual opinions of Dr. Dmitry Bick, Dr. Stephen DeGraff, Dr. Suzanne Mignon, and the guests. It should not be taken as medical advice or an establishment of standard of care. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. Please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, but more importantly, leave a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Reviews not only help us grow listeners, but also help us grow as a show, improve our content, and make us better.
Let go. Hey, I'm really proud of y'all. Montgomery Brawl. Bitch. Not one but them all. Montgomery Brawl. Shout out bro that can swim. Montgomery Brawl. Salute shit, really all of them. Montgomery Brawl. Shout out Unc with the chair. Montgomery Brawl. Everybody that was there. Montgomery Brawl. Threw the hat off at the start. Montgomery Brawl. Man, shout out to the guard. Montgomery Brawl. Hey, now y'all done started some shit, so we gon' finish y'all it. Did. And this time, everybody about to witness it. Y'all. Bro told them to move, just doing this job. But y'all wanted to jump him, so now we got a prize. Let's get it. All right, bet. Let me tell y'all what really happened. Heard they was jumping on my cousin, let me off, Captain. Cuz came out the water like, let's get it cracking. Unc came with the chair like I got some action. Cuz came no shirt like I got Sebastian. I got him. Even the women getting hit like, damn, what happened? Hey, this kinda lit like, damn, it's cracking. I even seen a rock bottom like, damn, this wrestling. Seen a couple of them boys go night-night. And we got the first black man to swim to a fight. Salute. If you mad at this song, don't mention me. Don't do it. That chair going down in history. Hey, I'm really proud of y'all. Montgomery Brawl. Bitch. Not one but them all. Montgomery Brawl. Shout out bro that can swim. Montgomery Brawl. Salute shit, really all of them. Montgomery Brawl. Shout out Unc with the chair. Montgomery Brawl. Everybody that was there. Montgomery Brawl. Threw the hat off at the start. Montgomery Brawl. Man, shout out to the guard. Montgomery Brawl. Yeah, this a real good moment in history right now. Let us all smile. Salute.
Hey, this is good. This is good. This is good. I wouldn't mind having that on my iTunes, my phone on a repeat. This is good.
It should be your ringtone.
Yeah,
it's the beginning of that.
gotta love Black culture, man. I mean, they put that song in a heartbeat. That song was out. Oh, boy.
Yeah, it came out like 5 minutes or 10 minutes after it hit the internet. It's just
crazy.
Incredible, these guys. I don't know who to attribute it to because I have the account that posted it, but I have no idea who actually created it.
They definitely need a mention in this episode because wow, I mean the lyrics is actually pretty fun and it's ingenious. That's awesome.
It's so good. It's so good. It says at GMAC Cash. At GMAC Cash. That's the on the video. So we're gonna
about to go viral. We'll tweet them.
We're gonna attribute it.
Yeah, we'll mention at Jim Cash. What is it?
GMAC Cash. GMAC Cash.
Okay.
I guess it's on Twitter or Instagram or something, but that's what it says on the video. That's the watermark on the video.
We'll give them a mention, yeah, because that's catchy, man.
That's fantastic. Did you watch this video?
I watched this video. I watched all the entire videos I saw online the entire week and past week whenever it started. I couldn't get enough of it, man.
The best part of this video, and look, if you guys haven't seen this thing, you absolutely must see this video.
I mean, I'm sure pretty much everybody have seen it. Everybody probably have seen it, unless you don't have the internet, you don't have a phone or nothing.
But the best part is when the guy is swimming across the canal. There's a little red arrow, as if we're not going to notice the guy swimming across the canal.
Hey, I give him props. He jumped, all clothed and everything. He jumped and swam across it. He wouldn't miss it for anything.
There's a stereotype that he broke.
It's valid. I'm going to speak for majority of Black people I know. The stereotype is valid. It's valid. I don't think I may have jumped in an impulse, but I don't think if I had sat down and thought about it, I probably wouldn't have jumped. Black people we are swim adverse, put it that way. I respect the water very much so.
There's the commentary. You got to listen to this commentary. I'm gonna play this. This is the commentary of the guy swimming across.
They wrong for that now. That boy swimming his ass over there.
Oh my God, that's so funny. The commentary just makes the video, so if you haven't seen it, you absolutely have to watch the whole thing. It's about 5 minutes long. The whole video is 5 minutes long, cut together from all different angles. It's the best. But it underscores, like, part of the problem in this country is this kind of...
Well, I mean, the entire thing is funny, but let's not beat around the bush. That there was a lot of racial
oh my God, it was, yeah.
connotation to it. That was a lot. It's kind of like obvious,
I was asking Maria, would they have jumped this guy if he was a white guy? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't think
so. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. If I had to bet money on it, I would say probably no, but I don't know. But if I was betting money, I'd say no.
But it turned into 150 years of anger.
Right. It's what is it? Alabama,
Montgomery,
right?
Alabama.
And poor guy, he was just doing his job. I mean, I don't know what was said. I don't know what was said and happened before we started seeing the footage. I mean, before that interaction with the border and I guess the guy working the dock. But regardless of what was said, it seems like he was telling him to move away or to not park or to just move the boat. And I guess they didn't like that direction they received from somebody working. I guess they didn't like a black guy telling them not to stay there. And whether alcohol was involved, it's not impossible. People
couldn't have not been involved, right?
Right. I could see people boarding and getting trashed and not listening to direction and rules and wanting to break rules because they feel like the privilege maybe, and they decided to jump the guy because he said you cannot stay there. And it was a group of 4 or 5 people and one black guy, and I could see where the anger, I don't condone violence, but I could see exactly where the anger would come from a group of black people seeing one of theirs getting beat down, getting jumped by another group of white people.
I don't blame them at all.
No, somebody had to defend them. Right?
The only thing I'm going to say is I think the chair was unnecessary.
Yes. That should be out. Then that guy should go to jail. That guy should be charged for assault and battery with a deadly weapon. Now it shares a deadly weapon now. You have to have a license carry chair around now.
Yeah. In Alabama, I don't think you need a license to carry anything. I don't know. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, fair enough.
In Florida, you don't, so why not in Alabama?
Why not a chair, right? Why not in Alabama? But that's an assault with a deadly weapon. That poor woman got her face plastered, plowed, whatever you want to use, with a chair.
Well, he was arrested. You can see that in the video. As soon as he did that, the cops came over. But those white people were arrested too, and they deserved it too, because there's no reason to start a fight like that. And apparently what happened, and this is my understanding of what happened, is there's a steamboat that needed to park there, and they were in the way.
Right.
And all the guy was doing was asking them to move it. And like, how are we in a place right now where like the guy asks you to move your boat so that the steamboat, which belongs there, is supposed to be there, and your reaction is,
no, I'm not moving it.
No, I'm not moving it, and get out of my face, and I'm gonna.
Right. And let me add that the worker is wearing a uniform, so you can't pretend that you don't know the guy's doing his job. He's got the authority of telling you what not to park or to move away. He's wearing a damn uniform.
It's unfortunate, but it's also like hilariously funny. They're calling them the Black Avengers.
They're all assembled. Black Avengers assembled.
Black Avengers assemble. I can't get enough of it. Yeah.
No, it's unfortunate. We if we take a little bit of seriousness out of it, with all the racial stuff in America happening, it's unfortunate that it happened. But it's also some part of me is I'm glad it was on video. I'm glad the entirety of it was.
The entirety of it, yeah.
Had it been the second half, because I'll share with you, the first video I've seen was the second half of it. That's the first day I saw the second half where a bunch of black people are fighting with other white people. Okay, so there was no explanation to it. There was nothing, and people, were able to make that one judgment. Then the full video came out, and you saw exactly what started everything, and the entire story changed. So I'm glad. I'm thankful for videos, for cell phone nowadays, because the truth will set you free.
That's right. It started for a reason. It wasn't just a bunch of people just fighting for no reason.
Oh well. Well, Montgomery. What is it? Montgomery Brawl.
The Montgomery Brawl.
I'm gonna be in my 60s, 70s, and it's gonna be in history books somewhere. You know, I don't know.
That's right.
There's gonna be movies. There's gonna be a movie about it.
And this video and this song is gonna end it.
Let go. Hey, I'm really proud of y'all. Montgomery Brawl. Bitch, not one but them all. Montgomery Brawl. Shout out bro that can swim. Montgomery Brawl. New shit really harder than Montgomery Brawl. Shout out Hulk with the chair. Montgomery Brawl. Everybody that was there. Montgomery Brawl.
Montgomery Brawl.
At the start. Montgomery Brawl. Man, shout out to the girl. Montgomery Brawl. Hey, now y'all done started some shit, so we gonna finish. Y'all did. And this time, everybody about to witness.
Did you see the Johnny Manziel Untold?
I did. Netflix, right? Yeah, I did.
Yeah. What'd you think?
I thought there's a lot of stuff that I thought I knew. That was because obviously in the past few years when he was playing, his life was on the tabloids every single day. I mean, I don't think he had any privacy. But I'm not sure if the word shocked is what I would use, but I was delighted to see how much insight he had at that time, but still going through it, through the motion. It seems like he understood he had having some trouble particularly when he started talking about his times in Cleveland. He mentioned some things that may have seemed like some symptoms of, if you will, depression. And then he also knew he was self-medicating. So at some point, you could tell that he had some insight into his mental health. Obviously not coping in the right way with the right means, but and fast forward to now, you could sense the sense of maturity and the looking back and see how seemingly it seems to be at peace with, or maybe not at peace, but accepting of how his career or the lack thereof turned out. But I thought he was good. I honestly, I kind of wish that he talked more about his diagnosis. He didn't have to. That's his own privacy. But I felt like there could have been more meat on the bone when he spoke about diagnosis that he had received and treatment that he had been prescribed.
Did you watch him play when he was playing?
Yeah, I watched him play when he was in college, and I did. He didn't play much in Cleveland, obviously, but yeah, I did.
Yeah, he played 2 years at Texas A&M, and he had crazy stats.
He wasn't sensational. He was. I remember he was a star. The guy was hanging out with hip hop stars. He was everywhere on TV. Like he was bigger than the game. He was bigger than school.
Yeah, and it all started after they beat Alabama, which made me very happy because I hate Alabama.
Yes.
But after that, his entire life blew up. He became basically a celebrity and not really a football player, although the next year when he came back, his stats were even better. Yeah. And that's how he vaulted up the charts. Right. But then all of his problems caused him not to. Right. So he started dropping in the draft.
Could you imagine if, according to the way he told his story, could you imagine if this guy was really, really caring about his fitness, about working out, about tape, about not drinking and playing hungover? Could you imagine how good it would be? Because it was sensational.
I'm going to get this out of the way real quick. I didn't think he was going to be an NFL quarterback. I thought he was a college quarterback, and he was a fantastic college quarterback. When you're running around against 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, and you're faster than everyone, you can do that.
He beat Alabama by himself.
It doesn't matter.
By himself.
To me, I never thought he was going to be an NFL quarterback because he was too small. His Wikipedia lists him as 6 feet.
No, he's 5'10", 5'11".
I remember him being something like 5'10" from when he was in college. And I actually made a bet, and I feel bad about saying this now after watching Untold, but because now I know why I won this bet. But I made a bet with Maria's cousin that he would be out of the league in 2 years. He would either be out of the league or he'd be like a backup journeyman somewhere. And he thought he was going to be the next great quarterback in the NFL. He's going to have a long career. He's going to be fantastic. He was going to be Randall Cunningham, the white Randall Cunningham. And I'm like, there's no way. He's way too small. He's just too small. When you look at the NFL quarterbacks, except for Doug Flutie, how many NFL quarterbacks are his size that are
What's his name?
superstars?
The Philadelphia quarterback. I'm blocking out. What's his name?
The one from Alabama. The one from Jalen Hurts. The one from Alabama.
Jalen Hurts. There you go. Speaking of Alabama, Jalen Hurts. I was blocking out. Jalen Hurts is pretty short, right? What is it, like 5'10" too? Or probably shorter.
I don't think so. He's 6'1", according to Wikipedia.
Oh, look at that. He looks so small on the floor, on the pitch.
Who knows with Wikipedia, because they're listing Johnny Manziel as 6 feet tall. But I'm going to look somewhere else and see. Pro Football Reference has him at 6'1". The Eagles site has him as 6'1". So let's just assume he's 6'1", and that's accurate. So 6'1" and 5'10" are not the same thing.
No, you could tell the guy he had aptitudes, right? You could tell that he was going somewhere. I mean, come on,
that's the issue. Doug Flutie was 5'10", and he did it. But the reason I didn't think he was going to be good was, one, his size. I didn't think he was going to be very good at his size, plus all of the off-field stuff, because that stuff we knew.
I think the only reason that he did not end up being a very good quarterback is because of his off the field issues. I think he never really wanted to be. He had the skill. He never really put into it. He said it. He said once he left college, once he left frat town, he didn't care for professional football. So the nightlife style, the drugs and alcoholism, and then the breaking the rules and getting into pre-draft workout hungover. I mean that's self-sabotaging,
But he did great in the pre-draft workout.
To my point, imagine if that guy had slept a good 10 hours the night before and had his receivers with him.
There's a section in the story on Netflix where they ask him, or somebody asks him, do you want to be a celebrity or do you want to be an athlete or do you want to be a quarterback or something like that? I don't remember what his answer was, if they even gave an answer, but it seemed like he rather wanted to be a celebrity rather than.
He probably said something he's a regular celebrity. I mean, I thought he was so arrogant. He probably said he was a regular celebrity, which have been true.
And the thing is, if he didn't really love college either, because he left after 2 years.
No. I'm glad you bring this point, because
he hated the NCAA.
Besides the mental health part that we are to discuss, there was another episode that we had a couple of months back. We talked about NCAA and paying or not paying athletes. So the reason that he left NCAA, the reason that he actually said he didn't like it, is because Alabama was building a new stadium out of his back. They were selling his jerseys for the millions.
Not Alabama, Texas A&M.
Oh, sorry, Texas A&M, right? They were building a new building, and he couldn't get $1 as a face of the entire.
That's right.
So if you want to go back to a few months when we talked about it, he and his friend decided that he'll make money, and they started dealing his autographs, and the guy became seemingly a millionaire, right? At what? He was 18, 19 then?
Something like that, yeah.
And funny enough, he was drinking in every single bars he went on national television. Nobody ever caught him. Yeah. Nobody ever cited him with drinking underage. But
that's what happens in celebrity. It doesn't really matter how old you are, as long as you're seen at our bar.
But if you pay attention, this Netflix documentary, it's two part. It's one part mental health and one part what the NCAA is as a business, and what I'm not saying that that's the reason he acted the way he acted, but it was a huge part of it that he said it. He realized that he was going to go in a fight against NCAA and trying to get his getting paid for his likeness. Fast forward to now, you have the NIL deals that athletes can make money out.
Right. I was going to say, can you imagine what would happen now?
It would have been normal for him.
He would be making more than some NFL players. It would be,
of course.
And the question is, would he be that way if he wasn't upset at the NCAA for not letting him be that way?
No, I think he said himself. I think he said in the piece that he didn't find any joy as a professional athlete. He didn't find the camaraderie, and then he felt like, I think he said something like he felt like NFL was too strict. There was no fun out of it. Where in college, he was a king in college. He was going in frat parties the night before games. You can't do that when you're playing for the NFL. You know, you have an agent with you 24/7. You have PR people with you 24/7.
What I was asking was if he had these NIL deals, he wouldn't need to fly to Miami to get $30,000 to sign football.
So you're saying that they may have been able to contain him?
Okay, well, so the thing is, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, according to him.
According to him.
Spoiler alert. If you haven't watched this.
Well, we can get into it. They gave him a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. I'm not sure if it's the right one, but we can get to that later. I'm not sure that's what.
Really?
Why? How can you diagnose somebody with bipolar disorder when they're telling you they've been on oxy, on cocaine, on alcohol, LSD for the past year and a half or 2 years, and he wasn't pro, or even college?
He was diagnosed in 2018, I think, is what they said in the episode.
Right.
And in 2018, all right, we didn't interview him, but let's assume for a second that he came to the psychiatrist and he was sober, or sober a month or two, whatever. And he starts giving his background. How do you differentiate between someone who's manic secondary to substance use and primary bipolar disorder? You get the history and you find out that they were acting this way. They were acting manic
prior to the substance use, right?
Well, not just prior, but at any time when he wasn't doing it.
Right.
So there had to be
psychoactive substance, right?
So the question was, when you were not drinking and when you were not doing drugs during that period, in your life, have you ever had issues with grandiosity, increase in speech, increase in goal-directed activity? If he had any four of those symptoms, so we can go through them. It's distractibility,
decreased need for sleep, like you're not tired, you don't need to sleep.
Increased activity, increased speech,
hypersexuality.
Well, that's listed under like behavior that could get you in trouble.
Right. Risky behavior.
And I can pull out the DSM. I don't know if you guys did this in residency, but we had an acronym, DIGFAST.
Yeah, we had DIGFAST, yeah.
And the T in DIGFAST is thoughtless acts, which are things that are fun but can get you in trouble, and you do them despite getting in trouble. And drug use is something that would be in that realm. So a lot of bipolars use drugs to either self-medicate or because it gives them more manic symptoms.
Which is what's fun in psychiatry, right? They give you an amalgam of symptoms, and you as a professional, you have to kind of find out what would be attributed to a substance, what would be attributed to a prior underlying mental health condition, and what is personality, right? So a lot of, we might want to discuss some cluster B with Johnny Manziel as well, because he used the words profusely that he was self-sabotaging, but we don't have to diagnose him with a cluster B, and that's what we play, and that's why we play the Goldwater rule. That's what we play.
Do we have to play that? Okay, let's do
Play
that.
Goldwater if we're discussing Johnny Manziel cluster B possible diagnosis, because we have not seen the guy, we have not analyzed him.
Let's play it. Hold on.
Go for it. Oh boy, and then we'll go into DIGFAST.
Some rules weren't meant to be broken, but what if they're just guidelines? Time for Goldwater rules.
Okay, I think we're good now.
So Goldwater, I was saying we're not diagnosing Johnny Manziel with anything.
That's right.
We're going on the basis of what he said on his
except bipolar, which he said that he is.
That he received. He didn't say he was. He said he received the diagnosis of bipolar.
He received that diagnosis. So we're not going to assume that it's correct. Or anything like that.
So let's go very simple in layman terms. Like you said, DIGFAST, and it's a very nice acronym, right? That you can have the most, I guess, prominent symptoms in bipolar disorder. And the D stands for distractibility, which you mentioned. Distractibility could look like anything. You can't stay on task. You can be redirected to anything. You're very, I guess you have a lot of ideas, which is also one of the letters. And the second one is impulsivity. You don't think, you have reckless behaviors, and into impulsivity, there's an umbrella underneath. You could have hypersexual behaviors. You could have spending sprees, blasting out your credit card, flying across state, ending up in Miami when you left New York last night, on a manic fugue,
The I that you learned was impulsivity. The I that I learned was increased activity. Increase in goal-directed activity.
Right. It's well, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, that we learn it differently.
All right, go ahead.
And then the G. So we did D for destructibility, I for impulsivity, G for grandiosity. Obviously, believing that you're over the top of the world. You know, you don't follow rules. That you even sometimes you think you're godlike, right? You have powers sometimes that you can fly or whatnot. And then the F is for fight of ideas, where you talk about so many topics at the same time. You can't stay on topic, and your mind just races from one topic to the next. You can't really stay on anything. And then the A I have in mind is activity increase, or you had it in the I as increased activity. Activity increase mean common, oftentimes people that are manic, they'll start doing several things. I've had patients, not sleeping at night and creating a business overnight, creating a website or writing a book, which is very common, or cleaning the house at 3 in the morning, start painting the walls at, overnight, and doing different things that you don't have to do overnight. And in the S, I have it as sleep difficulty, but it's not really right because the manic person does not have difficulty for sleep. They don't need to sleep. They don't feel like they're tired. Whereas sleep difficulty would be insomnia, where you're struggling to fall asleep. Like you want to sleep, but you can't. But the manic person, they don't even feel they need to be asleep. They're like very active, very energized. And everybody at home can't sleep because of them, right? Because their behavior is disrupted.
So what's the T then?
The T is talk activeness, which is what we called in more scientific terms, hyperverbal speech, pressured speech when you cannot interrupt the patient or the person that you're talking to, and rambling nonstop, fast, rapid, pressured speech.
I said I was increased activity, but I was increased speech, and then T was the thoughtless acts. So I had it. We learned them backwards.
But it's the same symptoms, right? But that being said, to will it back to Johnny Manziel, I'm not sure we saw that. To be fair, and I always tell people in my office when I see people in the office, when they're stable, obviously, when they can have that kind of insight, I tell them if they, when you ask questions in an evaluation, you want to know if somebody has been hypomanic or manic. I've always asked them, have you end up in a hospital while you think you're manic or you're hypomanic, or have you end up in jail? And because a manic episode will lead you either in three places: in a hospital, alive, in a hospital, in a morgue, or in prison. Because you're so manic that your behavior is so reckless, you either crash a car.
We're talking about so severe. Like
there's
different levels of mania, right? So there's psychothymia. There's bipolar 2.
Yeah, maybe it was bipolar 2.
And then there's 3 different levels of bipolar. There's mild, moderate, and severe, and then severe with psychotic features. There's so many different levels of it. Don't even get me started on what I think about bipolar 2, because I think that there's a little too many. As someone who's experienced in seeing what bipolar looks like, I think there's a little too many bipolar type diagnoses. But if you look at his behavior when he was in practice, he said himself, and again, we don't have any audio from this because it's a Netflix documentary, but I believe he said that he was difficult to wrangle in during practices too. He didn't like practices. He didn't show up to some of them.
Well, that's another parenthesis. I really thought when he was talking about himself in the piece on Netflix, I thought he had some ADHD features to him. That kid that really cannot be reined in, to use your word. He couldn't be really settled. He was always doing something different. Like he was always hyperactive. I thought he had some ADHD features to him. And fair enough, there's a school of thought that says ADHD and bipolar on the same spectrum, right?
So I was going to ask you, how do you differentiate between the two in your practice? How do you differentiate between bipolar disorder mania in a severe hyperactive ADHD and say like a cluster B?
Right. So that's a great question. So I'll refer back to the DSM. The DSM-5 loves to throw away the specifiers of time, right? Bipolar manic episode, you have to have that at least 10 to 15 days, which is, they say, 2 weeks of symptoms. Cluster B's of personality, the mood lability, the mood fluctuation, right? The bipolar, people say, I'm bipolar, I'm happy today, I'm sad tomorrow. No, you're not bipolar. You might have mood lability. You have what we call inability to regulate emotions, emotion dysregulation, whatever they call it.
What about rapid cycling bipolar?
It's not in a day. Rapid cycling bipolar, what's the definition? Is four or more episode of bipolar mania or bipolar depression within a year. That's the definition of bipolar rapid cycling type. Cluster B's, the mood fluctuation is within the days, and if it lasts more than a week, then you can go into a primary underlying mood disorder like bipolar disorder. And for ADHD, the mood lability is more so irritability. It's not necessarily mood lability. It's irritability, is low frustration tolerance, and being impulsive, being hyperactive, and sometimes getting into trouble when you're in school, for example, when you're in class and you can pay attention and because you're hyperactive. Then kids get wrongly diagnosed oftentimes. I've seen kids diagnosed at 9 years old, 10 years old, 11, 12, 13 with bipolar disorder, which is wrong. Which I believe it's not right.
Well, okay. Neither one of us is a child psychiatrist, so
right. No, it's a spectrum. So to go back with a drifter, because I love this topic, but Manziel, you're right. He had some mood lability, and he had some features of
some mood lability.
He had a
lot of mood lability.
He had a lot.
I'll tell you how I differentiate it. It's sleep. It's a simple thing as sleep. So when I see someone that comes in and tells me that they're have difficulty with containing their thoughts, and they move a lot and they do all these things, the first thing I ask them is, how many hours do you sleep? Because if I say, how do you sleep? And you ask a manic person, how do you sleep? They say, I sleep great. I sleep great. And then you ask them how many hours they sleep, and they're like, 2 to 3 hours. Doesn't everybody sleep 2 to 3 hours? Like, who needs more sleep? So you can't ask them, how do you sleep? You ask them, how many hours do you get? And ADHD people tell you they get 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours. Right. They sleep perfectly fine. They might get up to go to the bathroom. They come back. They fall right back asleep. ADHD people sleep. Bipolar people do not sleep. Two things that I found that are almost pathognomonic for bipolar is the decreased need for sleep and the complete denial that they're manic.
Right. They have zero insight.
Complete denial.
And they feel great.
Whereas ADHD patients tend to realize what they're doing is detrimental to them. They don't want to be this way. They don't like being hyperactive. And
speaking of pathognomonic in bipolar, I don't think if I have it very rarely, but I don't think I've seen a manic person without a speech symptoms, without a speech impediment, rapid speech or hyperverbal, or a thought process being tangential or circumstantial. I've not seen it. Whereas I have seen people that are in crisis of the cluster B personality, whether it is borderline or whatnot, or histrionic, they are profusely talking, but they're not necessarily tangential or circumstantial, and you can interrupt them. So, speaking of, and I don't think now, so I'm gonna put the ball back in your court. I don't think I've never seen any footage of Manziel having a speech, impediment. Whereas I've seen Antonio Brown. We've seen Antonio Brown on live television being rambling and being rapid speech and being tangential and circumstantial and not making sense. Yeah, but that's a difference.
But Johnny Manziel didn't really, when he was going through all of this, Twitter had just started, and I don't even think Instagram was out yet. Because when did Instagram start?
But
it started in 2016.
But again, the most famous DSM-5 criteria is the diagnosis cannot be in a context of concomitant substance use disorder.
Correct.
So
that's much more difficult to discern, because you have to have a period where they're sober and still acting this way. And that's the question. So,
and seemingly he was.
But the thing is, did he go to these places while he was manic, and then he was drinking and doing the drugs to either slow himself down or make himself more because he liked that behavior?
He said it. He said he was doing, all of the above. He was doing alcohol, he was doing oxy, he was doing cocaine and benzos since he was in college, throughout his entire college in frat life.
And the reason I think that it's correct is because he had the depressive episode. Because when people are, to get bipolar disorder diagnoses, the only thing you need is the mania. Which sounds weird, because then it would be unipolar mania. But the assumption is that the depression is on the way. It's coming.
Right. It's until it happens, right?
That's right. Until it happens, it's not there, but it will happen. And look, it happened to him, right? Because he got very down.
No, he described the symptoms without saying
after he left.
Yeah.
He described them, and he described. And we should talk about this because it was a topic last week or last show. The suicide attempt.
Yeah, he had a suicide attempt. Oh well.
It was in the show. It was almost a throwaway line. It was, I did this, the gun clicked, I don't know what happened, and then they moved on. And I would have loved to know more about how that came about.
That's why I said I felt like there could have been more meat on the bone. But that's up to him. You know, I'm not going to say that he should have discussed his suicide attempt more in depth. That's up to him. You know,
maybe he didn't want to talk about it.
Maybe it's triggering for him. You know, that I could understand that as well. And he did say to start the topic, he did say that he had bought a gun, you know, months or years prior.
It was a plan.
Knowing that eventually he would use it. And his plan was to blow his entire money away, spend how much money he could. And he had spent millions in a night, knowing that down the road, when the bank account said zero, that was the day he would be ready to pull the trigger. And apparently he did pull the trigger, and the gun, you know, got jammed up. And then that's when, you know, I guess he had a second chance. But now I'm gonna have a caveat and maybe complicate this a little bit. A lot of time, if you're an active substance user, the withdrawal symptoms might look like a primary diagnosis, right? If you're withdrawing from stimulants that seemingly was on cocaine for, you know, months,
correct?
It
yes,
could look like depression. I'm not saying he wasn't depressed. I'm not discrediting his account.
Correct.
But if you want to be scientific or fair about things, if he's withdrawing from substances, he will have symptoms of depression. He will be, or that he or
and
she
you don't
will
right,
be,
and you don't even have to.
Right.
You don't even have to withdraw from them, because alcohol, as you use it more and more, will cause depression. It's a depressant, and then, you know, once you blow out all your serotonin receptors and dopamine receptors with cocaine and stimulants, you're going to end up depressed.
The higher you go, the harder the fall. Like when you're high on cocaine for like a weekend, I can guarantee you Monday and Tuesday won't be fun.
Yeah, and there's evidence that the more you do those drugs, the less likely you are to actually recover from depression, because you've basically fried your
right. You fried your dopamine receptors, exactly. All the pathways, all the mesolimbic. If we're going to go more in depth, mesolimbic would be more the psychotic behaviors. But the frontal area, right? The frontal temporal area of the brain is where you have all your affective, effect from, you know, stimulants and antidepressants. So to your point, when you've been doing cocaine and frying your dopamine pathway in the frontal temporal areas, you have complete dysregulation. When you remove that often, that stimulant, and then you expecting to feel normal with no drugs, it's quite impossible. You know, that's different. You have to see a doctor and be on medication to try to have balance out the neurotransmitters.
I do want to point this out, and this is part of what we were talking about last week when we were talking about suicide and nomenclature and things like that. I received an APA headline through email that said that U.S. suicide rates hit all-time highs last year.
What is it? U.S. What is it? U.S. suicide rate?
U.S. suicides hit all-time high last year.
After COVID, right?
The 2022. And according to this, according to the AP, 49,500 people committed suicide. Or are we doing commit, or are we doing died by suicide?
I'll say died by suicide instead of committing. Okay. I'll stick to the
49,500 people died by suicide last year in the U.S., which is the highest number ever.
Yeah.
The suicide rate hasn't been calculated, so I misspoke earlier. It's not a rate, it's a number. And
so that's prevalence. That's prevalence. Prevalence
correct.
Is the amount of cases in a point of time. Right.
Correct. And suicides are more common in the U.S. than any time since the dawn of World War II. CNN said suicide rose to the 11th leading cause of death in 2021, and provisional data shows the same in 2022. Firearms were involved in more than half of them in 2022, and the greatest, and this is according to ABC News, the greatest increase was seen among adults aged 65 and older, which was up 8.1% from 2021. The second highest increase was 45 to 64, up 6.6%. And there was an increase of people between ages 25 and 44, but that number was up 0.7%. So it was up across the board for adults.
That's pretty alarming. That's pretty alarming. Yeah.
And so the question is why?
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like, without any scientific data to back that up, it sounds like this generation or nowadays people feel hopeless. You know, nobody. I mean, that's basically what suicide is, right? You feel hopeless. There's no way you hope for a better future, and then that's the only way out. So, is it an effect of the way things are as a country or as a world? I don't know. You mentioned the U.S. I'm not sure if the U.S. seems more grim now than it did. For example, we mentioned World War II, than it was in World War II. So if you're comparing the time in World War II and the time now, I would probably say being World War II might have looked like no future for anybody, right? So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's a confounded factors. You know, there's a lot of factors into it. There's social media, and kids are, you know, affected more so with bullying and whatnot, and people have much more issues with coping nowadays than they did 50, 60 years ago. 50 years ago, what we could cope with was probably more than what you can cope with now, because nobody has any coping skills. Nobody was taught to endure, you know, stressors when they go to school. Everybody's on the phone. Everybody's
and I think that there's part of it is, I think, the lack of access. To be honest with you, I have a huge bone to pick with the healthcare industry.
Yes, there's lack of access, but there is lack of access, but you cannot deny that it's improving. It has improved. The access you have now is not the access you had 50 years ago, right? We look at us doing a mental health podcast. You didn't have that 50 years ago. We didn't talk mental health.
You didn't have podcasts at all 50 years ago.
But it was, my point is, mental health discussion was not something you would see on TV or you would hear on the radio. It was something that you discuss in the privacy of you and your doctors. So it wasn't something, it was taboo. It was something that people would talk and have Netflix episode about their own struggles 50 years ago, you know? So I feel like access now, okay, let's say access. Let's say insight and information is better now than it was, you know.
Yeah, and look, access is better because of telehealth stuff, but the reason I said access is because it's a healthcare problem. Just recently, I think in the last, 7 years or something, mental health professionals, psychiatrists are supposed to get paid the same as
primary care physician,
primary carers, and they're considered now primary care in some way. It's some places specialists.
Yeah,
But that kind of access, if I posted a meme on Instagram that said, you can't have a mental illness if your psychiatrist doesn't take your insurance, which is funny, but it's almost true.
It's almost true,
if people don't have it, and it's happened in my practice where people have come in with insurance and we've tried to verify it and we've realized that they don't actually have mental health benefits. And so they have to pay self-pay rates. And they're like, I'm not doing that. And I don't blame them. It's expensive.
The states have been trying to fix that with the new, the integrative model of care, where they have psychiatrists being coupled with primary care physician in an outpatient office because they want to increase access, for example. And there's different reason why integrative model of care is the best way to go with mental health, because you put down the stigma. People say they're going to go to the primary care physician, but at the same time, they shut your office with a psychiatrist, right? And then if you go to if you compare to non-integrative, you have to go to a primary care physician, then you get a referral to go to a psychiatrist. Then the insurance can be an issue, or then the person doesn't get access because they don't want to go to a mental health clinic.
Right. Yeah.
So it's different factors.
And getting back to Johnny Manziel, we don't really know the reasons that he went down that path, but when you're super depressed and you hate where you are, and he mentioned that he did whatever he could to get out of Cleveland. When you're in that position and you see no way out, your career is kind of ending, Cleveland is done with you, but what else do you have? Because no one else is going to touch you for these reasons.
Yeah.
You can see where he went down that path.
I think, the biggest thing I'd say from an outside looking in, a big canvas, I guess the point I take away from his documentary is that, which I don't know, this is just an assumption. I don't know. I have not seen the guy personally. I have not interviewed him. It seems like to your point, he might have been dealing with mental health his entire teenage years, and he was self-medicating, so to speak, with football, with his circle of friends, with the frat lifestyle, being the number one guy, having people around him all the time, overcompensating for what he had to deal with, and then transitioning from, being just a school student to being a fandom, a celebrity. Then you get access to all kind of drugs and all kind of, illusions that life is great and everything. And you never actually get down to what caused you to go to do drugs, right? And then I guess getting into NFL, to paraphrase what he said, is that he didn't feel like he had the same kind of fulfillment compared to college. He was not that person that people gravitated around to. He was not with his best friend. He was not in frat parties every single night. He was just work. And that's when seemingly football wasn't fun anymore. And that's when he went down the slope. Again, self-medicating with alcohol and drugs. To the point that he went to rehab several times. He went to therapists, he went to psychiatrists, got diagnosed with a few different diagnoses, got medication, and now I guess in a good place. He's in a good place in his life. I guess it might have been a different story if he had seen a psychiatrist early on or a therapist early on to understand his behavior and get to the bottom of why he's acting the way he's acting. Why do you think at 18 you need to have that kind of behavior to feel fulfilled? Right? What is missing in your life that you think that's what you have to do to feel like you fulfilled? What is the reason?
Was he doing anything different than any other college frat kid other than the fact that he was super famous? Isn't he super famous 18, 19
But he said
kid?
he said it actually. He said he never felt it was ever enough. He was spending $1 million at 20 years old, but he never felt it was enough. He was chasing something that he didn't know what it was. He was flying across state with his best friend and then coming back to school for a game tomorrow, and he never felt it was enough. He was always chasing something, and he said it. He didn't know where to stop.
Right, and I think the NCAA, his hatred of the NCAA is valid because, again, and we mentioned this earlier, if he was able to get NIL deals nowadays, I don't necessarily think that this would have ended the same way. I really honestly don't, because he had to go and fly to these places and do this stuff, and then he's already there and he's getting a bunch of cash. What are you going to do with it as an 18 to 19-year-old kid? Yeah, but if he had NIL deals...
And we know what we said last time, a few weeks ago when we had the on NIL. We said that if NCAA would give these kids the money that they deserve, but also give them access to financial counseling, give them access to mental health care.
Right.
Maybe if he had that, getting the money and getting access to mental health, getting access to financial planning, maybe would not be, what his career ended up to be, because seemingly, and his parents, I kind of like, I love the way he interacted with his dad. But it kind of like there was he never said it, but it seemed like his parents never really had a say in what he was doing. It didn't look like his father, his mother had any influence on him whatsoever at 18.
And that's the diagnosis that he got. Maybe, who knows, bipolar. Maybe that's right, because, that when you're in a manic state, there's nothing. Nobody can tell you anything. But he's in a good place, and that's
in a good place. And I always say, and we are very glad that somebody like him, with his stature, with his following, he's willing to discuss the struggle, public sphere and discuss mental health and making being selfless and put their life out there, and it helps the effort of destigmatizing mental health and mental health care. So
yeah, and maybe one day we can get him on this show and he can tell us firsthand.
If you ever hear this episode, he can be with us whenever he wants. He can be
open invitation.
Open invitation, whatever he wants, whenever he wants. So yeah.
Johnny, come on our show. Guest today, Dr. Brittany Stallworth, also known as DrFitBritt on Instagram. We're really happy to have you here. This is a perfect place to talk about fitness and mental health. the topic that I really love because I really like the gym and weightlifting. So this is perfect for me. Just reading about you, you are from Detroit and you went to Howard undergrad. You went to Wayne State for medical school, and now you are a third year resident at Morehouse School of Medicine. And I just want to point something out here. Morehouse School of Medicine still has you as a PGY2.
They will eventually update the website.
They have to. They have to. Yeah. Shout out to Morehouse. Shout out to Morehouse. Hey, I've met Brittany like this year. When was it? Was it May? Something like that. I went to a conference that Morehouse invited me over. They had a nice conference about diversity, inclusion in the Black community, and having more psychiatrists in the Black community, and it was amazing. And I had the chance to meet the beautiful people at Morehouse and the residents, and Brittany was there, and Brittany gave a amazing talk about mental health and fitness, and this is why she's with us today, and hopefully more people can be influenced by her experience and her knowledge, because that's what she is. She's an influencer now. So yeah. Right. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. Was there anything that you wanted to add that I didn't add on your bio?
No, I think that's okay. I think that sounds good. I like perfume in the background, but otherwise.
Yeah, tell me about that. I follow Brittany on social media, and I think that I did not know that you have, is it a hobby about perfume, or is it a business, or what is it? Like, you can't possibly use all of them.
Not in this lifetime, but I share them. And so I collect them. And I also break down bigger bottles into smaller bottles for people to purchase so they can try different scents. But fragrance is one of those things that's like, I smell it and I'm not having a seizure when I say this, but then I can like feel it. I can see it. I can taste it. I have a whole experience with fragrance. So it's my thing. It's my thing that's just for joy.
That sounds amazing. Like an LSD trip.
I am involved in that. I was just telling you my experience.
Not that I know anything about it. I'm just saying from people that tell me.
Aren't you, Dmitry, aren't you from the 60s? Or I'm aging you? No, you're
not. That's fantastic. That's great.
Ooh, I did not say
it. So can we get back to on topic?
Yes,
here? Thank you very much.
We can go back.
So Brittany, you are known on Instagram as DrFitBritt. So at DrFitBritt. If you want to find her, she's got a huge following. How did that name come up? Did you come up with it, or did somebody give it to you?
It was college. So I played softball in college. And eventually I stopped playing softball because I knew I wanted to go to medical school. But when I stopped playing softball, I gained a little bit of weight. And so towards the end of like junior year, beginning of senior year, I started to work out, and I was always at the track. I was making my friends go with me. And so that's when they started calling me DrFitBritt, kind of like, almost as if I was a drill sergeant. But then the name just kind of stuck. So it was one of those things where it was like the beginning of like my own personal fitness journey, not as part of a team or as an athlete. And so the nickname just stuck.
Yeah. I recall when I went to med school, maybe it was an excuse, but I always thought that I had like enough time to work out in med school, or maybe it was just an excuse. I don't know. So how did you reconcile first of all leaving softball, basically because I'm thinking that you have you don't have enough time to fit in your schedule, but how did you reconcile your lifestyle in terms of working out in med school and make it stick together up until now in residency? How did you make that work?
I just did what I could. So some days that meant I had, 45 minutes to an hour in the gym. Some days that meant that I had 10 minutes, but I always did something. My mom, so at first fitness was about vanity, right? Because I said I gained some weight and I was like, I'm going to get weight. So it really wasn't about anything but vanity. But then it became more personal when my mom got sick and she lost her ability to move. And so movement just became very important to me. Beyond that, in the season of like taking care of my mom when she got sick, I also had a 7-month-old baby when I started med school.
Wow.
So taking care of a lot of different people, that 10 to 45 minutes, whatever it was on any given day, was like a really important time for me to just kind of decompress. And so it became a little bit more personal as far as like my mental health. So I just decided to do something every day.
Were you aware at that time, was it a conscious decision to lean into fitness for your mental health? Is it something that you realized while you're doing it that your psyche, your mental health was at a better space working out?
Yeah. Eventually, I don't think initially it wasn't. Initially it was just like, I have to do 10 minutes a day because I want to be here for like my children and their children. Watching my mom get sick was probably the moment where it became more than just like about how I look, right? Then eventually I realized, oh, I really like the way this makes me feel. But initially it was more of like a deep kind of purpose. I want to see my kids and my grandkids get old. And so I have to do something every day type of thing.
What do you enjoy more right now? Do you enjoy being a fitness influencer on Instagram, or do you enjoy being a psychiatry resident?
I think it's so wild to hear myself referred to as a fitness influencer.
Well, that's how we're gonna go with. That's what we're gonna go with.
It felt good. Thank you.
We're all about good feelings here.
But a fitness coach, I'll say, coach is also feeding, right?
I think both. I actually use a lot of the things that I talk about on social media as far as working out with my patients.
Okay. Yeah.
So I enjoy both. I will say that psychiatry can be hard, right? Some of the cases can be very difficult and like just emotionally challenging. And so I appreciate both aspects in that I feel like my fitness journey kind of prepares me to deal with some of those more challenging aspects within my job in psychiatry. And then fitness also allows me to kind of decompress from my job in psychiatry. So they kind of go hand in hand. I don't know that I don't think I could be one without the other, to be honest. So.
Beautiful.
How did you go from, what did you do at Wayne State when you were playing softball? What were you studying? How did you decide to go from softball player, student, to deciding to go to medical school? Because it seems like, from what I'm reading on your bio, is there was a lot of steps between the time that you went to medical school and the time that you were at Wayne State. You founded a business. So how did you decide to do that?
Yeah, so I actually was at Howard when I played softball, because I went to Howard for undergrad. And what happened was organic chemistry, quite frankly.
Really?
I had never had to study that hard. I had never had to like go to a teacher hours that much. I had never had to like get a tutor and put that much effort into anything. And softball didn't allow for that. And I knew there was also Orgo too. And so I was like, well, I can't play this anymore. Because I knew that I wanted to, at the time, I didn't know if I wanted to be a physician or go into research, but I knew either way that class had to get knocked out. And so that was actually why. So thank you, organic chemistry, for ending
your softball career.
Yeah, organic chemistry ended a lot of things for a lot of people.
I know. I mean, organic chemistry. When I passed that class, I knew I was going to be a doctor. After I passed organic chem, before then, it was still up in the air if I was going to be a physician or not.
I still don't know how I got through that, and couldn't answer a single question now, but it happened. We got through it. But that's why I stopped playing softball. And then I did a fellowship. So I did a post-bac fellowship at the National Cancer Institute in between undergrad and medical school. And in that time, I had a kid and other things happened, and I needed money because I had gone from this person who had a job with a child to like, now I'm in med school paying to be here, right? I'm not getting paid.
Right.
And so that was kind of where the business aspect of it came in, because I still, had like things to do and bills to pay that exceeded what loans were going to be able to kind of accommodate with a child. And so I built a gym in my basement. I started to train folks, and it actually just became fun. It was like we used to go down there and just have life talks, and it was just kind of cool. It kind of is funny now thinking about it, because at the time I didn't know that I wanted to go into psych. But thinking about it now, it was kind of like therapy in my basement, gym therapy. So it's kind of cool to see how it all came full circle.
Yeah, I love how you call it gym therapy. And then in residency, do you get any chance to actually implement that with your patient? When do you get to use that and put that into your toolbox for patient care?
I actually have a lot of patients who don't want to take medication for various reasons. And I also use it with patients who are taking medications, but could just use like different coping mechanisms, right? So, one of the things that I like to tell patients to do is like body weight squats or push-ups, especially those who like have, sometimes when people have like big reactions to things, bigger reactions than other people might have. The things that I have found effective is like, okay, you got to do 10 push-ups when you feel like things are like about to boil over, and it works. People will come in
I
and be
love
like,
it.
Maybe not 10 out of 10 times, but 6 out of 10 times, doc, that helps. So I do get to kind of use that in a space where people are either reluctant to take medications or need some different coping mechanisms, which is nice.
Do you prescribe exercise?
So unofficially, per the literature, sure, but it is something that, within residency, no, because that's not, how it works. But one day in my, private career and in my professional career, I plan to, because I do think that it's useful.
Because I actually do that. I tell people that they need to exercise because the research does show that exercise is equivalent to about 10 milligrams of Prozac. And so if you're going to exercise, you're going to make yourself feel better.
Yeah, well, then I guess I do. I recommend it. I wouldn't say I prescribe it.
Prescribe. Yeah. It's part of the recommendation you give people anyway. You sleep well, you eat well, you exercise, about 3 times a week, 30 minutes a session, and keep your blood flow going, prevent dementia, for example.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you is how does fitness improve mental health? That you noticed? How does it improve yours? And how does it improve in general?
So, I mean, it's kind of like you said, right? It's the equivalent of 10 milligrams of Prozac. I actually didn't know that. But, I know that it helps improve energy. I tell my patients and just my people in general all the time, it's like a pyramid scheme, right? Because you need energy. Like you feel like you need energy to work out, but the working out gives you energy. Things like whether you feel it or not, if you do it, you will eventually feel more energized. But it's a really bad pyramid scheme. But for the sake of just, like you said, the way you feel, right? So having more energy. I also talk about it in what feels like a little bit of a deeper sense to me, which is doing the things so that the gifts that you have, right? We all have these gifts that, only we can give the world in one way or another, right? And I look at fitness as something to help preserve that, right? I think about when my mom passed away and the first time I ever participated in any type of like therapy or like sought out any mental health resources just for grief, right? And I think about when I walked in, there was this, young African-American physician who looked like me, and it made it a lot easier to accept help, right? For me personally, as somebody who was a little bit skeptical going in, right? And if folks like that who represent a minority in whatever way, whether it is because you are a woman of color or, somebody who played college softball or somebody who represents a group that people can identify with and therefore will accept help in a different way, fitness can help to preserve that so that you can help more people. And so that's kind of how I remind myself when I wake up at 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym when I really want to sleep. That's how it's a little bit deeper than just, how I feel today. It really is about how I feel over time and what I'm able to give over time.
I'm glad you brought that up. Mentioning the African American community or Black people or people of color. It's well described in literature that we have work to do in terms of accepting that we need to be more open to mental health and mental health care, and that we do need help. Have you been able to, meet the people where they at, so to speak, with sports? Because Black people in general are, for the most part, active in sports and whatnot. So, have you been able to use sports to reach them at that level and introduce them mental health? Kind of like an indirect way. Because that's what we try to do on this with this podcast. We kind of use sports or news as a bait, and then you've been caught and you talk about mental health regardless. So with your experience, with Black folks and people that not necessarily are, have the interest into getting into some kind of therapy or mental health? Have you been able to use sports and say, gotcha, we're doing mental health now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, yes. I mean, having a conversation, I'm going to quote my mother here because this is what she used to say,
Please
right?
do. Please do.
People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And so finding any way to connect with people, but sports is a good one, especially being a college athlete. It's like one of those things people want to know more about, right?
Yeah.
And then you can kind of, navigate the windy road to ending up having conversations about a million other things. So I definitely do think sports and fitness is people love talking about working out. Even people who don't work out they love to talk about working out because it's like they're like, oh, I need to work out, right? And so it's one of those topics that it's easy to talk about with people. People always have questions. People are always more curious, and I do think it's a good segue into like, well, what do you do? Oh, well, why do you do it? Because I think the why is really important, not so much the what. So
yeah, the why. I love that answer. If you don't mind, can you repeat the say that your mother said again? So I kind of like, I think it's very poignant.
Yeah. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so finding anything in common, sports or, whatever it is, it makes people feel it's like a human aspect to just having a conversation, and trying to help folks,
So I'm a college athlete too. So you're a college athlete. I'm a college athlete. That makes us a couple of college athletes cutting it up.
That was very subtle, Dmitry. That was very subtle. That was very, very subtle.
Good.
That's what we are. That's what we are. Before we get you out of here, I wanted to ask you one more thing. If you could give us 10 exercises that people have to do, I'm going to pin you down to 10. Give us your top 10 exercises that you think people should do or have to do.
Yeah. So so two things. I'm gonna plug myself here. So I actually have a fitness program that pretty much consists of the same 10 to 12 exercises in different orders for different lengths of time. Because it was the HIIT workouts that I did, the high intensity interval training, because I almost never had time to get to the gym sometimes unless I went down to my basement, which also didn't always happen. And so the body weight workouts with bands and things like that, just to get my heart rate up and then have a period of rest and then get my heart rate back up and then have a period of rest. So I think as far as what exercises are most important, I just want to say that like you don't need a gym. You don't need a gym. You need your body, right? So I would say for me, it's jump roping because I hate running. I think I actually am very concerned for people who run regularly. And I wonder why. I'm very curious about why they do that to themselves because I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But I do like
knees too.
Science says it's bad for your knees. I just don't like it, right? But I do like jump roping. So I would say jump roping, squats, push-ups. I actually hate sit-ups and crunches. I actually think planks are like the best thing you can do for your core. Lunges, particularly Bulgarian lunges. Those are great. Stiff leg deadlifts, if you have access to a gym. Lat pull downs, because I love a nice back. Calf raises, because calves are often slept on and are very important to leg development. And this is going to sound wild and it's not going to make sense, but toe spacers, like time regularly with toe spacers to make sure your feet have like a good position on the floor. You can get them on Amazon for like $6. But I actually have that in my exercise routine.
Yeah. So you mentioned you have a routine. Tell us a bit about is it the business, right? You do. I think you have a mental health, background to it, but it is mostly exercise routine, and you coach people. And I think you also have some merchandise with your brand on it. So tell us a little bit more about your business into fitness.
Yeah. So the name of my business is Full Cup Fitness, and the theme behind that is empty cups don't pour. Which I learned very well in med school, trying to take care of my mom and my baby. And then I had another baby and I was trying to be a med student and call my friends, clean my house, all those things that kind of you pour out into a lot of people. But what is it that you give yourself to make sure you can continue to do that? And so that's kind of what working out has always been for me.
Empty cup, don't pour. Oh, I love it.
So the name of the business is Full Cup Fitness. This is actually one of my workout fits. So I have workout sets. I also have workout bands and jump ropes that can be purchased with the fitness program. And the fitness program, you get access for 3 months. And I can personalize it. So depending on how it works. So there's like a preset one that everybody gets. But if the time intervals need to change, or if, you know, some exercise, people will message me and be like, this hurts my knee. I'll change it out for something else. So it's still an interactive kind of semi-personal training type of experience. And it's fun. I enjoy that. I get a lot of joy out of that. Especially, you know, again, residency, we're all physicians here. We are. It can be, there are days. Finding things that are for joy. And I encourage, that's the other part of the business too, is just helping people find their thing that's just for joy, right? What do you do? It's not because you are a doctor or whatever. It's just for whoever you are. So like for me, it's perfume, right? That is my just for joy. Okay. I don't care what is going on, how terrible my day is. At least I smell good, right? And having one thing is really, really important. And it's kind of like, you know, when we talked in May and, you know, at my talk, finding that thing that gets you through no matter what. And I told the story about this picture that I have. It's me and my son and my mom on his first birthday. And my mom died a couple of days after that. And when I look at that picture, the first thing that I notice is that my pants are too big. And I remember crying that morning on my son's birthday because those pants were too big. And I had just bought those pants because my other pants were too big, right? And it was just such a reflection of how I hadn't been taking care of myself, how I hadn't been eating, how I hadn't been drinking water. I had not been doing my hair. Like there were just so many things in that picture that reflected somebody that wasn't taking care of themselves. And when I look at that picture and I remember that season in my life, some days, you know, when I have a bad day, the thing I tell myself is, well, you know what, at least my pants fit today, right? Because I remember a time where even when things were not going well, I wasn't taking care of myself. But now, even when things aren't going well, I remember to like take care of myself, and my pants fit, and that's a win.
And your pants fit. Yeah, I love it.
That would be completely understandable though if you were taking care of your mom who was sick.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
To not take care of yourself, but it's important to do that anyway. So you found that out after that once she died, and you looked at the picture. Great. So we're going to get you out of here on this. So I wonder if you could help us out here. At the end of our show, we usually do a mental health tip of the day. So I was wondering if you could give us our mental health tip of the day.
I mean, you've been dropping them
I pinned you down. I pinned you down. It's okay if you don't. No, we can do it. But if you have a mental health tip of the day,
she's been giving them like nonstop since we stopped talking to her. You know?
So before you actually give it, let's play the intro to this, and then you can give us our mental health tip of the day.
Day full of hiccups? Need a shake up? Listen up! It's the Psych Effect Podcast Mental Health Tip of the Day.
All right. Tip of the day. This time it's brought to you by DrFitBritt. Brittany Stallworth, take it away.
Mental health tip of the day is have a I am statement that gets you through. So for me, right, I'm a physician, right, but I'm also from Southwest Detroit, and I also just love trap music. I can't help it, right? I'm pulling up to my job to be professional, but I'm coming in with trap music. And there's a song by Juvenile. It's called High, right? And in it, one of the lyrics is, you're a paper chaser. You got your block on fire. You handle your biz to the moment you expire. And that's my I am statement. I'm a paper chaser. I got my block on fire. I handle my biz until the moment I expire. It could be more formal than that. I am smart. I am whatever. But for me, it's the Juvenile lyric. So have an I am statement that gets you through.
I love it. You love trap music. Right. So I'm pretty sure Brittany would love the music that we've been playing in this show, right? I think that's trap. Have you heard of somebody named GM Cash, or what's his name? What's his name? GMAC Cash, right?
He's from Detroit.
Yeah, there you go. Detroit stand up. Detroit stand up. There you go.
I should have worn my buff. Stay over there. I got
Montgomery Brawl, stand up, Detroit. Yeah. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you, Brittany, for coming on here and talking to us about your story and about fitness and mental health. And we'll keep on following you on Instagram. It's at DrFitBritt on Instagram, and we put our Linktree link on our last Instagram post. So go check it out. Thank you, Britt.
Thank you. Keep your cup full.
Amen.
The previous podcast represented the individual opinions of Dr. Dmitry Bick, Dr. Stephen DeGraff, Dr. Suzanne Mignon, and the guests. It should not have been taken as medical advice or an establishment of standard of care. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.